Next week, of course, we have those meetings in Washington, the IMF and the World Bank. In anticipation of that, it appears, the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, had a speech before the Atlantic Council this week in which she really said, we've got to decide which side we're on, apparently pointing her finger sort of at China, saying you need to decide where you're going to come out because of the conflict with Russia over Ukraine. What about the use of international economic and monetary forums to really address things like national security?
Look, there's plenty we need to work out with respect to China. But let's start with the fact that the United States has now committed no funds to international COVID relief efforts. Let's start with the fact that the United States is a massive laggard with respect to climate change commitments because we haven't been able to pass anything through Congress. Let's start with the fact that Russia is earning more export revenue than it was before the war, and the ruble is stronger than it was because our European allies are continuing to import oil on a substantial scale. I think we need to start in those places before we go after China. I think Secretary Yellen has been enormously successful in her leadership on global tax issues, including bringing China into that regime, but the U.S. Congress isn't there, and I think that's a hugely important thing. I think that we do need to address the Chinese in a strong way, but we need to make a decision as to whether the U.S. strategy is to use international financial institutions as a strategy and a route to cooperating with China in those spheres where cooperation remains possible, or we need to conceptualize those institutions entirely as means of containing, disciplining, and limiting China. We haven't really given entirely clear signals on that. I think we should still be trying to take the former approach of using them as tools for engaging China. Finally, I hope that we're going to see in the next months a U.S. strategy that's clear and explicit towards the World Bank. It seems to me that as climate change has loomed larger and larger as a problem, as there has been a major pandemic issue, as the need for relief around the world has stepped up, the bank has really not stepped up as a major player. And given that the U.S. is the largest shareholder and appoints the president, the U.S. has a responsibility at this point to energize the bank.